If you look on the screen right now, this is one of the many that I got from shots. While I was in the prison, I asked 92 inmates who were sitting in front of me to write on a piece of paper what they wanted to be forgiven for. I have visited prisons in Jamaica. I have visited in the UK. I've gone into the prisons in America. I've gone into the prisons in Scotland. I have a real heart to speak to people who are incarcerated. And I got this passion from this initial visit with the young men at Metcalf Street Juvenile Institution in Kingston, Jamaica. I have a session in the prison where I go in and I speak to the inmates. I try to encourage them and I try to highlight the fact that no matter where you are, no matter what you've gone through, you have the ability to still walk in your purpose, still walk in your potential. And it was really, really difficult sometimes going into some of the prisons because you're talking to people who have done the worst things. I've been going into the maximum security prison, so you know what I'm talking about. And when you're sitting or you're standing, speaking to them, you have to put a glasses on or something over your eyes, which allow you not to see what the person has done, if you know. And this definitely has been a passion of mine. So this initial visit to Metcalf Street Juvenile Institution in Jamaica was one where I did a music session. I speak to the guys, but I use music as an icebreaker. And this icebreaker would let the guys relax and have dialogue. And this time I went in, the topic I wanted to speak about was forgiveness. I really wanted to speak to these guys about forgiveness. So this initial session I was having, I had 92 boys sitting in front of me. And these 92 boys, as I said, had many different convictions. Some were there for just being uncontrollable, and some were there for the worst crime you can think of. But all of these guys in the juvenile institution were 12 to 17 years of age. And when I gave these guys the piece of paper, I told them that they could throw the paper away or they could give it to a warden or they could give it to me. I also made them know that this was really something that was serious. I would take it serious. The warders would take it serious as well. So if they decided to throw the paper away, but keep it for themselves, it's their personal property. From the 92 boys, I got 36 back. It was good to see the boys participating and writing. Some of them decided to keep it for themselves. Some of them decided, there are a few of them who didn't want to write anything. I understood that as well too. But I got 36 back. And when I collected them, I didn't look at them at the time. I just put them in a bag. And because the session was still happening and it wasn't over yet, we still had to close after the session. We still had some more music, you know. And I decided to wait until after to look at the notes. And I went upstairs after the session. I went to sit with the superintendent to have lunch and just to talk about the session and just to see how we can work together on any other sessions to come. While I was eating lunch, I felt a little eager to look at the papers. Even though I said to myself I was going to wait until I get home. But my eagerness or my inquisitiveness made me just dip into the bag. And when I dipped into the bag, I pulled one out. And the first one I pulled out is the one that you're seeing on the screen right now. This was very, very, very difficult for me when I looked at it. It really, really, really made me feel as if, wow. Because none of these guys who were sitting in front of me looked like murderers or looked like criminals, to say. But this note really touched a core in me. And I stopped for about 5 to 10 minutes. I didn't want to do anything else apart from just meditate. As a matter of fact, and pray. I never understood the magnitude of the session until I started to look at these notes, especially that first note. I was shocked. As I said to you before, none of these guys seem as if they were capable of doing anything to include murder. 12-year-old to 17-year-old. Anyways, after that session, I left, and it stirred a thing in me to continue this prison visit. So I was booked for a show in Glasgow. I asked the promoters who invited me if they could set up some visits to some prisons, because that was a passion of mine. And indeed they did. They actually made some contacts with some prisons, and I got the opportunity to go into some prisons in Scotland. I had gone into prisons in Jamaica. I'd gone into the Fort Augustus prisons in Jamaica, so I had an understanding of the adult correctional facilities. Even though they were different in terms of their look, mainly the same thing. It was mainly the same thing. It was mainly people in a setting where they're restricted and they can't do much. They're very timed in everything they do. They're very watched. And you're talking about people who have done very dangerous crimes. So a lot of people would say to me, why aren't you scared? But I don't know. I've never felt scared of going into the prison to speak to people. Never ever had that inclination. But anyways, so when I went into the prison in Scotland, this was the first prison I went to in Scotland called Shotts Prison. And this was a maximum security prison in Scotland. And I had a session with the guys. Again, the session entailed music, entailed discussion. And when I got to the part where we're discussing, I had brought the letters from Jamaica. The 36 letters, I had brought them from Jamaica, and I'd brought them to Scotland with me, especially because I knew I was going into the prisons. And I shared all of these letters with the inmates in Shotts Prison. And when I did it, all of the inmates that were sitting in front of me really had a difficult time understanding. Even though most of these people sitting in front of me were inmates who had, some of them were there for 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, 35 years, again. But when they saw all of these notes from the kids 12 to 17, a lot of them were touched. And I asked them, could you write a letter from a father's point of view so I could give these letters to the inmates in the juvenile center? These inmates in Shotts wrote some of the most powerful letters you can ever imagine from a father's point of view. If you look on the screen right now, this is one of the many that I got from Shotts. The thing though, I also had the opportunity to go into many other prisons in the UK. I even went to England. I went to Belmarsh, which was a notorious prison. And when I went into all of these prisons, I shared the story. And I asked the prisoners to write a letter from a father's point of view. In total, I got back over 200 letters. And these letters are some powerful letters. I'm sharing some today, but I'm going to use this medium to share as much as I can from the father's point of view, as well as some more of the letters or notes from the juvenile detention center. I really want everybody watching me now to understand the importance of good role models, and the importance of family, and the importance of community. I was raised in a very good family, a very good community, and a lot of these people never had the opportunity. A lot of these juveniles, a lot of these young people don't have or never had the opportunity that I had growing up, to be blessed with a stable family. And some of them did. But what I can say is that no matter what is happening, just always remember there's always hope. These letters that were written from the prisoners were some of the most powerful letters. And I'm putting them together in a book called Letters from My Father. But I'm also going to share some on YouTube. So I'm going to close right now, and I'm going to say, to subscribe if you want to. I have been always trying to be a positive voice to the young people. I would prefer if they not get to jails, prisons. So if you have an opportunity to share this with somebody, then I'll ask you, please do. Enough respect. No matter what is happening, just remember there's hope. And if you are incarcerated, and if you were incarcerated, just remember that you still can be a positive voice to the people out there. Remember, never ever sleep on your purpose. Never ever sleep on your potential. You may be incarcerated, but you have hope. And you may be outside, not incarcerated. There's hope too. Enough respect again. Claudius England.